Hello everyone, it's Sascha from the Halo Trees. We recently released our new single, Happy Man, and I would like to share some thoughts on the background of the song's lyrics with you in a little essay. I read the essay in both English and German in order to reach as many of you as possible directly. As a hook, I choose whether dark music can make us happy. I ask for your patience until I get to the answer. So, this essay deals with the topic of happiness. To be happy. The question is what actually prevents us from being happy. The lyrics are of course not very long, but a few key questions are raised. For me, a central thought when I wrote the text was the sentence, "You can be happy." Not that I have ever consciously failed to be happy, who does that anyway? But we all have our little, more or less unconscious mechanisms for boycotting our own happiness, right? Or at least automatisms that occur in everyday stress that keep us from happiness and fulfillment. So it was strange at first to say to myself, you can be happy, but somehow also nice. I mean, it's an expression of self-love, a taking care of yourself. In the dark music scene, if you start a song lyric with the sentence, "I'm a happy man," it seems strange at first, right? Of course, the thought came to my mind, what will people think? With the Halo Trees, we've always walked a bit of a fine line, that we're not dark enough for the dark scene and not indie enough for the indie people. At least that's how it sometimes seems to me. And then I sing, "I'm a happy man." That takes some courage. Courage so that your inner skizzers don't immediately come into play and delete the sentence because it might not be cool enough. Because it doesn't fit into any cliché. And then name the whole song after it. Wow. Okay, but I did it because I wanted the lyrics to be a message for my later self. Okay, let's move on. Of course, when I sing "I'm a happy man," that doesn't mean that I always go through life grinning. Well, it's quite the opposite. Anyone who knows me knows that I can often be introverted, melancholic, and even a bit grumpy at times. How many times have I had to hear from people, "Why are you looking so unfriendly?" Even in moments when I actually felt good. So, the opposite of a happy man, as he appears in the picture book. But happiness, what is that actually? Are people who grin, smile and laugh at every opportunity automatically happier? Why do so many people unconsciously expect this from their fellow human beings? Are they otherwise unsettled? Can't you be happy as an introvert without letting it show? Isn't happiness individual anyway? Well, there are many questions around happiness. Can happiness be frozen? Or do you have to re-earn it every moment? Wait, re-earn it? Do you have to work for happiness? Or does it come to you with the right mindset? Is it possible to overthink questions about happiness too much? Yeah, obviously. So, what makes you happy? Health? Probably yes, but all too often you only become aware of your own health when you are sick, right? And money? I have often asked myself whether I would be happier on average if I had millions in my bank account and could afford everything I wanted while having less to do. If only I could play music all day long. Yes, maybe a few % I would be happier. But is money real happiness? Why do successful stars and entrepreneurs also fall into depression? And how about love? Anyone who has ever been in love knows that love can give us great feelings of happiness. It gives you wings, so to say. But every relationship, or let's say most, is work and has also dark sides. Some relationships cause more pain than happiness. even if both partners initially imagined it differently. And what about all the other things that we consume because we expect feelings of happiness from them, like drugs and alcohol, gambling, computer games or porn, or the constant clicks on social media sites? It is often the case that we lose the right balance and become addicted to it because the occasional dopamine release is no longer enough. Then, at some point, the emptiness takes over. Happiness and pain are often close together. And any happiness always seems to be of a temporary nature, a fleeting moment that cannot be captured. But maybe that's how it has to be. Perhaps this world is not intended for us to be happy and content forever, because it is a polar world that has an opposite for almost everything: hot and cold, healthy and sick, poor and rich, or happy and unhappy. Perhaps the deeper meaning of our lives is not trying to avoid everything negative, but rather accepting that both sides are part of life's experience. The more you accept things as they are, instead of resisting, the closer liberation is. I recommend reading Eckhart Tolle, whose message in short is, live in the moment, because only the moment is what we can influence. It's the only thing that is real. Tolle says that unhappiness increases as we deal with the past and the future, because many worries and fears are not about the present moment, but about what once was, and often no longer has any relevance, and things that could happen. It's definitely not easy for me to always be present in the moment, because it also means switching off your thoughts and not constantly dwelling on them. I often forget that I didn't actually want to think. Sometimes I get lost in negative thoughts. But over the years, I've gotten better and better in small steps, and I actually find that being present brings me closer to happiness. Well, at least temporarily. We already had that with volatility. At some point, mail comes again from the tax office, the current Facebook post from the Halo trees is hardly noticed, somebody says, Sascha, I have a lot of unpleasant work for you, and at the same time it's grey and hazy outside, and then the happiness seems gone. Who doesn't know that? Here it is particularly difficult not to fall into old patterns and simply indulge in negative thoughts or identify with them. But who said it would be easy? Because moments like these are the real challenges, and life is not a sprint but rather a marathon. So, is happiness work after all? I'm afraid so, because it cannot be frozen. And we have to keep creating new moments of happiness. It's good to remember that from time to time. But basically, it's not hard work, it's just constant remembering. In any case, I think, and that's really important, happiness is a choice. Yes, you decide for or against happiness. Do you remember the phrase, you can be happy? It may sound esoteric and cliché when I say that happiness is a choice. You could answer with, hey, you're singing, you're stupid, I'm a happy man, but you are not seriously ill. You are not poor, you haven't been abandoned recently, you're not morbidly depressed or anything else. And yes, exactly, I'm not. I am privileged. I sing that in the song to remind my future self, who may be not aware of it in that moment, that this is the case. But the point is, you can choose happiness at any moment. People who are seriously ill often report that they feel the greatest happiness at that time, simply because they were finally ready to let go of everything and engage in the present moment. Eckhart Tolle, whom I mentioned earlier, first had to become homeless and basically live in the gutter in order to have the insights that made him world famous. It's always a decision whether you see the glass half full or half empty. You can see every situation one way or another. The point is, you have to be aware of that first. If you have a serious accident and end up in the hospital, you can be extremely upset because the work is now on hold and you can't do all the things you wanted to do. Or you can be grateful because finally you have all the time for yourself that you would have never taken in your everyday life routine. So when I am depressed, I can choose to seek help instead of giving up. It's a choice. And for a homeless person, even a small one-room apartment is fantastic. And a seriously ill person would give anything just to have that little cold that's bothering me at the moment. And my really hard work would be maybe the dream for someone who's unemployed. I know there are also events that make it impossible to see things positively. When a loved one dies, when wars bring destruction or natural disasters wipe out entire villages, to name just a few examples. I know life isn't fair sometimes, and we can't influence everything. But it is a polar world, and every suffering at least allows us to see the positive aspects all the more clearly afterwards. And in the end, I still think that it is our decision what happens next. When a natural disaster takes everything away from me, I can bury myself in deep frustration and lose meaning, or roll up my sleeves and rebuild everything greater than it was before. Sure, there has to be time to grieve, but not for a whole lifetime. Here another aspect comes into play that is echoed in the song. I want to make you feel good. That doesn't necessarily refer to a specific person, but rather generally to bringing happiness into the world. I know I'm not going to turn the course of the world upside down, but every smile, I know earlier I said I often look grumpy, but anyway, every nice conversation or every little help can make at least one other person a little happier for a small moment. Alright, when it comes to privilege, I always try to remind myself that it's not normal that I'm here at all. After all, I was once the fastest sperm in a race, as the song lyrics amusingly says. So I prevailed against millions of other sperm. Funny idea, right? But we can all say that about ourselves, so we are winners before we are even born. I'm blessed to be able to be here and have experiences at all. I'm lucky that I have enough to eat and a roof over my head. What's more, not just a roof, but even a nice apartment and a studio where I can produce music. Okay, sometimes I wish more people would hear this music, but hey, at least I was the fastest sperm in a race of millions and even got a studio from the universe. That's not so bad, right? So sometimes it helps if you reset your mindset and become aware of the simple things. Do you know how great it is, for example, that you have a body that regulates everything on its own, from breathing to digestion to healing? What a miracle! Look at a flower on the side of the road. What beauty is there hidden in the middle of the concrete? When I sing I'm an optimist, it's of course quite ironic because I always had dark times in which I was quite negative and pessimistic. But I don't want that anymore. I've consciously decided against it, or I have to decide it again and again. I want to be an optimist, and if I'm not naturally one, I want to work to be one. You can be happy, and optimism helps a lot. And I think you can do that in dark music too. Maybe it's kind of ironic that despite the title Happy Man is one of the darkest songs on our upcoming album. But I don't like to be too obvious. So let's come back to the original question. Can dark music make us happy? I admit I initially chose the sentence as a cliffhanger, but basically the answer is very obvious. Yes, of course. Every person has a different energy level, and while some listeners may feel uncomfortable and depressed by sad or gloomy music, others, like me, find that this music resonates at just the right frequency. When I listen to sad music, it doesn't necessarily make me sad. It's more the kind of music that feels normal to me, whereas if the music is too obviously cheerful, I quickly feel an instinct to flee, as if the inner compass is sounding the alarm. But of course it also depends on trigger points and the context. In a melodramatic film, sad music may have a completely different effect than in everyday life. Or if I associate a certain song with a very impactful experience, such as a death or a breakup, it is a kind of sad music that I no longer want to listen to all the time or at all. And if I feel really sad, I might want to consciously push myself up with energetic music. But in my, let's call it, normal state, sad music feels good to me. For me, melancholic music, by the way, for me melancholic is a lighter, more pleasant form of sadness, is also a good outlet for processing my own fears, worries or dreams. As a songwriter, I mean. When I have written a melancholic song, I get rid of those thoughts to some extent. It's a kind of a self-therapy. I don't know if that would be possible with cheerful music. And yet here too there is the desire to be happy at the end of the day. Because, as I said before, you can be happy. So thank you for listening if you've gotten this far in this world of quick clicks. After all, the YouTube backend revealed to me that most people move on again after 15 seconds, because there could be something more interesting behind the next click. So we probably lost these people sometime after the second sentence. Regardless, if you can, digital detox is always a good thing. Just turn off all the media and focus on what is real in that moment. It's the moment itself. Even if you can't listen to the Halo Trees then, but I'm sure there will be other opportunities for that. And hey, now that I've recorded this essay, I have a second opportunity to remember these thoughts later, beside the song, because I'm sure I will forget them myself from time to time. All the best and see you soon. Your Sascha.